What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we got Poilievre on the campaign trail.
Yeah, I feel like this guy's campaigning harder than everyone else.
Right? He's talking about immigration, abortion, and crime. And then next we got Canadian dollar is on the rise.
A silver lining to all these tariffs?
Maybe, or is the US dollar just falling?
Probably.
And then we got Trump's tariffs versus Canada, EU, and China.
So what's going on with all this? There's like a 90-day pause now?
It looks like it, and also he has a little bit of a different approach with all of these countries. And then we got tariffs are taking a big bite out of Apple.
Yeah, Apple's not top dog anymore.
Apparently, but these tariffs might not apply to phones and tablets. Then some people are accusing Trump of insider trading.
Yeah, he seemed to make a very timely post on Truth Social.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can exactly call it insider trading. Next, we got some Canadians are considering refinancing their mortgages.
Yeah, variable or fixed. People are leaning both ways.
Tough choice. And after all that, what do we have for off topic?
So we'll talk about the LeBron doll, we'll talk about the Minecraft movie, and a couple other things.
And stay tuned for the question segment at the end.
We'll give you our thoughts and opinions on all of it. Also, go like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And go follow us on Instagram and TikTok at TheBiringPodcast. So, let's start with Poilievre on the campaign trail. Mark Carney paused his campaign trail to deal with these tariffs, but Poilievre's been working hard.
Yeah, this guy's not letting up. He was in Kitchener a few days ago, Windsor last night, and he was in Ottawa to pledge increased support for the veterans. And he's popping up all over the place, interviews and local radio.
Yeah, I've seen him on like a couple of like these little podcasts. I didn't even know they existed, but apparently there are some Canadian podcasts.
I guess so, yeah.
He was supposed to do a big one, right? Rogan?
They've been talking about Rogan.
There was rumors of that.
Yeah, but they kind of like quieted down now.
Yeah. It was just that one day we all heard it, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe he's saving it for out of later.
That'd be cool
That would,
if he did that.
Yeah, because I think maybe you get the youth vote out there, right?
He's definitely working hard to garner some votes, so.
Right. While he was on the campaign trail, Poilievre had this to say about abortion.
I can guarantee you there will be no laws restricting abortion passed when I'm Prime Minister. For 20 years, the policy of the Conservative Party has been that there will be no restrictions brought in on a woman's right to choose. It's been in our policy since it was adopted by our party members in the year 2004. So this is a 21-year policy adopted by our members and upheld at all of our subsequent conventions. So there will be no laws or other restrictions imposed on a woman's right to decide to do with her body as she wishes. And that is something that I'm guaranteeing to you.
Pretty and clear statement there.
Yeah. I feel like that's something I don't get with, like if you look at the States, you'll see that abortion is like a hot button issue.
Yeah.
Right. And they disagree with it. Right. On the left, they think it's a pro-choice thing. And on the right, they think it's a pro-life thing. And they're always arguing about how many weeks and gestational age and whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But in Canada, an issue like that is pretty much bipartisan when it comes to the two main parties, Liberals and Conservatives, right? They both kind of agree on the same sort of idea when it comes to abortion.
They've generally always kind of agreed.
So then was it necessary for him to even say that?
I think it is because there is like this weird narrative that people push online, and they'll just typically in their mind, they think that conservatives aren't for some of these things because in the States they're not, I guess. So like they start thinking that maybe it's the same here, so they'll just push these weird narratives, and he's just reiterating that like, hey guys, like I'm not going to do anything to abortion, right?
Yeah.
And then I was also seeing online that there are some people like a little bit hating on Canada and saying that you can just abort babies whenever you want, it's completely legal up until 36 weeks, or right, which is a little wild, right? From what I read,
6 weeks.
Yeah, so I read up on it.
Yeah.
Apparently, you can. There is no legal limit on when you can abort a baby in Canada.
Yeah.
Right. But from what I was reading, there are I had it right here somewhere. There are like professional limitations to it.
Yeah.
And I think if a baby, if somebody's more than 24 weeks pregnant, like there has to be some sort of, something going on with the mother where they have to perform
Like a health complication of some
exactly.
sort. Or the baby, right?
Yeah. And then like it's also different, I feel like, when it comes to I had it here somewhere. No, I lost it. Okay, there. Yeah. In Canada, we don't have a law. We do have very strict professional guidelines. No physician in Canada can terminate a pregnancy over 24 weeks without serious indications that the life of the mother is at risk, that the fetus has very serious malformations. So basically, like, unless like it's like something serious after 24 weeks, like you can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Generally, that's a lot of weeks.
Yeah, even 24 weeks is a lot, though. That's 6
That's a
months.
long time.
Yeah. As to what she was saying, I was looking at this on the Liberal website. It does say the they wrote, yet the Conservatives want to roll back abortion access. So maybe that's why he's talking about it.
Yeah.
So the Liberals are trying to highlight that the Conservatives are
trying to push it back, but there's a lot of misinformation is what I think is happening.
There's also this rhetoric online too that he's mini Trump or whatever, right? So he's probably trying to distance himself from that.
Well, it's probably also his take on abortion, right? Like, because like we tend to lean conservative right now, right? But that when it comes to abortion, I've always been pro-choice, right?
Yeah.
Because I think when people make these arguments over like weeks and stuff like that, it's a little ridiculous because I mean, maybe there's people that take advantage of these things in the States, right? But abortion is, like I was saying before, like it's completely legal here, right?
Yeah.
Like even in Ontario, it's like medical abortion is up to 9 weeks.
Okay.
Right? Surgical abortion is up to 24 weeks. And some clinics offer surgical abortions up to 20 weeks.
Holy.
And more complicated procedures can be performed up to 24 weeks. So like really medical abortions are really just 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? So 9 weeks is like a little over 2 months.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like as crazy as people make it seem online.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, for me, it's always like, I don't believe in pushing your ideology on anyone.
Right.
And even like religiously, like if that's where you're coming from, you shouldn't be telling anybody what to do.
Yeah, it's very religious based.
Yeah. Especially in the States, the evangelicals, right? Like,
yeah, like I can understand why somebody would be on the pro-life side of things, and you get it, right? But then also, if you want less government involvement, right, why would you want to hear?
Yeah.
Right? And then after he said that, like I did see like the people posted about this on social media, like all over the place. Some of the comments were like, you're murdering babies when you do that. Right. And without even thinking that the other option also agrees with this. Right? It's not like they're saying don't do this. Right. They both agree with this.
The liberals have the same stance.
Yeah. So it's like a completely, I don't know, it's a dumb take to me.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then that wasn't the only thing he was talking about. He's also talking about making it easier for qualified immigrants to get a job and not allowing criminal immigrants into Canada or deporting them completely. And here's a clip of it.
20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses that can't work. 85% of Filipino nurses cannot work in nursing in Canada. In the States, they take an international exam and they can get working within a few months. Here it's 7 or 8 years, but you don't have 7 or 8 years. You have to pay the bills. So then they end up taking low wage work and they never ever get their profession back. And meanwhile, we have shortages of these very professions, particularly in healthcare. So we have an obvious solution, which is to set up a Blue Seal standard, which is a skills-based test to show that they can live up to our standard. And then when they take the test, they can get a stamp. And I'm going to be pushing the provinces to recognize the Blue Seal so that it would be fully portable. Actually, even Canadian doctors can't move around seamlessly because we don't have a national license. It's funny, the Trudeau government was asked, do you do criminal background checks? I said, well, sure. And what they meant was they look at our criminal registry and see if the person has committed a crime in Canada? Well, of course not. They haven't been in Canada. So obviously they're not in our crime records. What we need to do is criminal background checks in the country of origin, vet them for any background they might have over there. And we should just have a non-admissibility policy for anyone who has any serious crime in their background. But right now, believe it or not, the government does not do that. And we've got to close that down. We've got to stop the insanity at our borders. We'll start scanning our shipping containers that come in to stop the drugs, the guns, the stolen cars. We have to deport people if they commit offenses while they're here on visitor visas. Immediately deport them. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to get back to a common sense border and immigration policy that puts our country first.
See, I don't know who hears that and thinks, no, we should keep criminals here.
Right? I mean, I'll take a different approach to it. Like, it's also like, you know how people criticize the right for being not for immigrants?
Yeah.
Right? And we were talking about him before. He was saying all he wanted to do was limit the amount of immigrants to the amount that can actually be housed and live here, right? So we don't add to this inflation problem we have going on, right? Even there, he's saying what he first started with in that first blip, he was saying that if there's anyone who has a higher education or has a professional background, it shouldn't be so difficult for you to then get a higher end job here, right?
Yeah.
Like, you had a lot of these people who, like, yeah, some of them are like, yes, there's also people that are uneducated and like they just come here for the labor force and they want to climb the ladder that way.
Yeah.
But there are also a lot of people who are educated and they come from professional backgrounds in India and they're over here driving Ubers, right? Or from wherever, China or wherever, right? And I think, like, we've had family in the past, right? Where they would be doing some pretty high ranking jobs, right? And then when they would settle down over here, they are stuck driving forklifts and stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with those jobs, right? But imagine, like, if you went abroad and you had a degree and you had, you know, high paying job here, and then you're getting pushed into the labor world, right? Like, I don't know. It's a little unfair, maybe. Because, like, even then, like, if they want to try to, you know, become a doctor here or anything, a doctor's a little drastic. But, like, it's the amount that you have to do and the fees you have to pay and the money that they make. Like, he's saying he knows. It's next to impossible. They're probably never going to do it.
Yeah, he was saying it, like, in the States, it only takes like about 7 months and you can be practicing. But here it takes years, like 7 years. And the problem is they come here and you hear those stories all the time. Like, they come here, the former engineers, doctors, nurses, what have you, and they end up like driving Uber or just working a labor job. Because when you're here, you spent a lot of money getting here, first of all.
Right.
And then when you are here, you have to earn money to live. You can't just jump into your field. And if they're not recognizing it, that's another hurdle, right? So this blue seal, you were saying, sounds promising.
Like, I also see it from the side where any kid that is in, for example, med school, dental school, whatever profession, now they're in competition with all these other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, is that also fair?
Yeah,
there is that
If
aspect.
you look at it from that side, right, that is more of a conservative mindset than even what he has.
No, like, I agree with him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it shouldn't be so difficult. Like, how many years? 7, 8 years?
Yeah.
I don't know. I see both sides of it. Because if I was, for example, in med school, then like, oh, now my competition's even broader.
Yeah.
Now I need to
but
worry
don't we
about-
have like a shortage of anyway?
That's
We
what I
need
was
more
gonna say.
doctors. So
So,
like,
like,
where's
at
the
a time
competition?
like this,
I don't think there's a shortage of kids going to med school.
Yeah, but they
So
just don't practice.
Getting jobs is maybe something needs to be looked at there.
Yeah.
yeah, but there's a shortage in healthcare right now.
Yeah.
With nurses,
With nurses and
doctors.
stuff, I think it's what happened during like the pandemic. They were just overworked and they were quitting.
Yeah.
So now, but like, why haven't we rebounded from that? I don't get it.
Well, I don't think there's enough family doctors and stuff here,
Definitely
Yeah.
not.
right? So, like, I think if you're having a shortage of workers, then yeah, it definitely makes sense to do these things, right? You also see in the States, there's a massive debate around the H-1B visa, which is theoretically the same thing. You're trying to get higher end immigrants into your country. The idea here, I think, is instead of, like, there's the other angle to that would be, instead of importing a labor class, you're importing a professional one, right? When you import the labor class, what you're going to do is effectively take away low paying jobs or middle class jobs, right? Which is going to then, you know, make it more difficult for the people who make somewhere between 50 to 60K a year versus you're now importing professional jobs, right? Which are, usually higher paid. So if there's a competition there, the idea is that they can deal with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the cream rises to the top type of deal.
Yeah.
If you're qualified enough, right?
Whereas like if you keep importing the labor class, like even what happens with that, like you'll get a bunch of people who like, and we've seen it, right? Where people will get, these immigrants will work for cash, they'll work under the table, they'll do whatever they got to do, right? And what they're doing is undercutting Canadian jobs.
For sure, yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of people out there, and like if you want to have the mindset of like, if you work for whatever you get, right? And like, you work hard, you should get rewarded for it. If it's already highly competitive, right? In those kind of jobs, then a lot of those kind of workers coming in makes it harder, right?
Yeah.
Because like no country can like, everyone likes to talk about how many immigrants and there's a bunch of people that think they should shut down borders completely, but no country can sustain itself without immigrants.
Oh, for sure.
Period, right? Like this country's built on immigrants, right? It's just you can't have too many of them coming in at once, right? And you have to be strategic with which kind come in.
Yeah.
Right? And if I'm thinking
how many professionals are actually trying to come in though? I don't know the statistic on that. So
that again, I feel like, so my take on that is like, if you look at Silicon Valley, right, in the States, right, in California, a lot of I'm not saying the only smart people, there's also people at MIT and Harvard and a bunch of smart people that graduate and they are also successful in tech, right? But a lot of these guys come from India, right? A lot of them. They're like really smart guys, right? And there's an incentive to go to the States, right? And you're creating these companies. There's innovative ideas that are, Canada has none of that.
Yeah.
Right? So why would we want to just keep importing the labor class, hurting our middle class, right? Why wouldn't you take a shot at, I think he sees that. He's not just laying into it a little bit. In the States, they kind of like, we're overanalyzing it right now at this point, right? But that's kind of like, that's how I look at it. There's like so many different angles to it. And if you're going to get immigrants coming into your country anyways, right? Wouldn't you want to take the best ones? Right? Sure. And if
help the economy grow for sure.
Right? Yeah. And if it seems like we're at a time when there's too much competition, that's when you would hope that a government sees that and they readjust and they move in a different direction.
Yeah.
Right? But what do you guys think about the second thing he was saying about the crime?
I mean, it's the first time I'm hearing a political leader on any platform be kind of tough on crime. He's not even being super. It's not like he's saying mass deportations now. Right.
It did a little bit remind me of what Trump said.
Because the word is so toxic, I guess.
It wasn't on that level, though.
No, it wasn't.
It was pretty light.
Yeah.
All he was saying is if you're I think he's implementing a 3-strike rule too. I don't think he said it there. But he's just saying if you did a serious crime and you're here on a visa,
I agree
you should
with
go
him.
back to your country.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, like I think that word deportation, like I think that like obviously carries this weird like, oh my God, he's gonna be like Trump kind of idea.
Yeah.
But like you guys are saying, like if somebody's here and they commit a crime, right? Like you shouldn't be committing a crime in a country. You shouldn't be committing a crime anywhere. But like you'd think that you're a little bit smart enough to be like, hey, listen, I'm not a citizen of this country, right? Like I don't have the same freedoms and rights as citizens do.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just be a little bit careful on like what I'm doing.
Do you think it depends on the crime? Like for example, remember that truck driver in Saskatchewan, was it?
Yeah.
The Humboldt. I don't know. Like he was very remorseful.
Yeah.
So I felt bad for him that they were deporting him and stuff.
Yeah.
So then, do you think they could do it case by case, or you think it should just be you did a crime, you should be deported?
I think
go for it.
For me, the severity does matter.
Yeah.
And in that specific case, I think it was pretty severe, but
it was very severe.
Yeah. Sure. Even the parents were sided with the guy because they could see how remorseful he was. Right? Some of them. Yeah. But for me, the severity would matter. Like a petty crime, like stealing something from the grocery store, doesn't equate to like these auto thefts. A lot of them have been linked to immigrants.
Yeah. So then I would give you a little bit pushback there to what you were saying. I think somebody like him, like if you feel like bad or whatever, I think that's a little bit of it wasn't his intent to do what happened. It was an accident at the end of the day.
That being said, if it was my child,
Exactly.
then obviously I would feel very different.
Yeah, intent versus consequences, right? Like even if it's not your intent to do something, but it ends up happening, right? There's going to be consequences to it, right? And if a bunch of people have lost their kids, you would think that to me, like if all the parents were on the same page and they signed some sort of petition for him to stay, sure. But even if one parent's like, no,
that's one too many.
Then that's one too many. That's their child, right? They have the right for that. But like when it comes to petty crimes, like we live here, we grow up here, we don't commit crimes.
Yeah,
like how hard is it not to commit crime? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Like they're just trying to like mess around. Like they shouldn't. They're not here to play.
Yeah, like you just get to commit crimes.
Yeah.
Why? Right? Like if you have a harsher consequence, right? And you're like, hey, listen, we catch you even stealing anything, then you guys are going right back.
Yeah.
Then people will act right. They're like, bro, if we get caught, we can't be here anymore.
Yeah, maybe that'll change how immigrants are even viewed.
Right.
They acted a little more right.
Like to me, it's like if you enact a policy like that, right, and then you actually enforce it, right? Like if you see somebody, I don't know, stealing a car, you catch them, you realize they're an immigrant, you deport them. Right?
Yeah.
You do that once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, it catches on social media, starts, people stop. Right? And that's usually the goal.
Yeah.
If you just go like, it's just one
You
car.
can do whatever you want.
It's just one car, man. It's fine.
It's fun.
Just don't do it
Let's all
again.
go to Canada. It's fun there.
I feel like we're in a place where we need to get a little tough on crime, and I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Please like and subscribe, as it really does help the podcast out tremendously. Now let's get back to the podcast. Okay, let's move on to the Canadian dollar. So the Canadian dollar strengthened to a 5-month high on Friday. It was approximately 68 cents US in February, and now it climbed all the way back up to 72 cents US. For the week, the loonie added approximately 2.4% when the market crash happened a couple of weeks ago. If you guys remember, experts were saying there's a 66% chance that the Bank of Canada is going to cut rates.
Yeah.
Now it's completely flipped, and they're saying that there's a 60% chance that they're going to pause.
They're going to pause.
Yeah.
Okay.
So look at that. In a week, right? We went from a market crash, right? And everyone going, oh my God, they're going to do 50. Oh, they're going to do an emergency rate cut. It's going to be 50 basis points, 75 basis points.
I heard that.
Right? And immediately
days, right?
like I think that was like 4 or 5 days later.
Everybody panics.
Right away.
Right away.
Because you have to. There's trillions of dollars being lost,
Stock
right?
markets, everything.
Yeah. Even on the U.S. side, it was the biggest drop for the U.S. dollar since 2022. It's fallen 7% since Trump has come into office. And the decline comes with all these U.S. stocks. A lot of investors are dumping assets, putting pressure on the dollar, right?
Yeah.
So it's more so the U.S. dollar is falling. The Canadian dollar is not really rising.
Yeah, you saw it. I think the U.S. dollar was down 0.9% against the Swiss franc. And
Just
then
keeps going.
Yeah, gold was up to $3,200 an ounce.
Wow.
Right? Which is usually something that people buy in recessions, right?
Yeah.
Because they're trying to, they're not certain about what the hell is going on with the dollar or the currency, right? But yeah, it seems like what you're saying, right? Because these tariffs, a lot of uncertainty, right? So people are just like, we're going to get away from the US dollar.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like it's more of that. And I saw so many articles out there, the Swiss is comparative to the US dollar, the Swiss franc hasn't been this strong in a decade, right?
Yeah.
The euro hasn't been this strong in 3 years, right? And you see these things out there, right?
Yeah.
Remember when the Canadian dollar and the American dollar are on par?
Yeah.
Life was good, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Felt like a good time.
You know who was prime minister? Harper.
Even like traveling, right?
Yeah.
It didn't hurt your pocket so much.
Yeah.
Lately?
Yeah, have you seen like all the news about people not even going to the States? All the lines at the airports are empty. No one's in security. You could just walk through.
Really?
So how much of that has to do with this boycotting stuff, and how much of it has to do with like nobody having any money?
That's what I think it is. But I think it's worried about, I guess, yeah.
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're boycotting, but also everybody's money's tied up, or they're losing in the stock market or in housing. Affordability is all-time lows, right?
I mean, there's also this weird theory going on online. I don't know if you saw it about Trump's crashing the U.S. dollar on purpose.
Yeah.
Why?
So the idea, I think, is because you get taxed more if your currency is higher and people start to do weird things when it comes to manufacturing and these tariffs and stuff and producing things in different countries.
Yeah.
But a lot of, I think what Trump does, right, there's like drastic effects to it. And then people just take these things and run with it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think he just, in his mind, he's just like, whoa, that could be good for us.
Yeah.
Like when he sees it, he just leans into it.
It's like
right?
he's just testing the waters. Like, that could work. Maybe that'll work.
But he must know that even the slightest thing he says can make such a big ripple effect.
Sure. He does know that.
Yeah, that's why he does it.
That's why he says it.
That's why he says it. Yeah, that's why he says it. But I don't think like it's nobody's like God, right? Like you don't know what you're gonna do, the kind of consequence or effect it's gonna have, right? Sure. It's once it happens. If you're like what he's really good at, like once it happens, he's like, I'm gonna use this to my advantage. Like he figures out a way to spin it.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty. Like you could make fun of him if you want to. It's masterful the way the guy does it.
Everything he does is epic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like yeah. Okay, let's move on to... Look, these are merely our opinions based on our life experiences, knowledge, and research. Maybe you agree or disagree or simply want to be a part of the conversation. Leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. Now let's get back to the pod. Let's move on to these tariffs and his different approach when it comes to China, Canada, the European Union. And before we start talking about it, here's Trump talking about how these countries react.
A lot of happy people, and I think we're going to do much better than that this time, because this time I'm doing what I want to do with respect to the tariffs. I think we're going to do much better. And just remember the numbers. When you get up to $2 billion a day, $2 billion a day, they say, sir, can't be that, can it? I said, yeah, it can. It's the biggest transaction ever made. Right. This is bigger than any deal. You guys, some of you work for companies. Your companies are peanuts. I don't care how big they are. Compared, this is the largest transaction in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir.
Oh my God.
And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. Congress takes over negotiating. Sell America fast because you're going to go busted. You don't. I just saw it today. A couple of your congressmen said, I think we should get involved in the negotiation of the tariffs. Oh, that's what I need. I need some guy telling me how to negotiate. I tell you, the happiest people in the world would be China. They wouldn't be paying 104%. I tell you, they'd be paying no percent. We'd be paying them 104%. That's the beauty. Is these guys, we gotta be careful. And even the concept of it hurts your negotiation. When they see a little story like that, the other side, it hurts your negotiation. And then the fake news wants to build it up, and it has no chance anyway. But we have to remain united. As I defend workers from unfair trade, House Republicans have a chance this week to bring trillions and trillions of dollars pouring back into America by pushing forward with the largest tax cuts in American history, which is what you're working on right now.
Largest tax cuts in American history.
So what he said at the end there, right? You know what the theory is floating around? Right?
Yeah.
That if he generates enough revenue from these tariffs, his plan is to get rid of income tax for anyone that makes less than $150,000 a year.
Yeah. Altogether, right?
So, I mean, if that was Canada, right? Like, we're making fun of him. Yeah. But, like, if that was happening here and somebody was like, guys, I'm about to get rid of income tax.
Yeah.
We'd all be like,
who wouldn't?
Short-term pain, long-term gain. We would all be saying that.
But he has to pull it off, right?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think his whole plan is like 4 years from now, guys, we're going to have this and that.
Yeah.
Right? But the way he was acting
he got presidential at the end. In the beginning, he's literally doing a comedy
He's
set.
just mocking people. So, like, he's kind of, if you think about it like that, doing right by his country, no?
Well, I think the idea, what everyone was offended by was this idea of protectionism.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone's so used to this global free trade stuff.
Yeah.
But let's get into these three countries. So here's a clip of Kevin O'Leary talking about his opinion on China.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
The average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
That sounds like a guy who has had some trademark issues in China, right?
Yeah.
He said he can't litigate in China. He's not a lawyer, right?
No, but
His
because of like he has a lot of companies, not only because of Shark Tank, he's always been investing in a lot of these companies, right? So when you do it's not just him, right? When whoever does business in China, from whatever I've read, seen, heard, right? Like it's like they do just knock off any product, right? And then sell it cheaper.
Any of these little like fidget spinner types, Frisbee or something, they knock all of it off.
So like you have, and then you can have whatever kind of, patent you want here, whatever, right? The second they see it, there's going to be a knockoff of it and they're going to sell it here for cheaper.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can make it cheaper than them.
But then what's the point of the patent then if it's...
Because it protects you here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If they make it in China, they can still sell it here?
Yeah.
But then imagine having competition here. Like at least it takes away that.
Yeah.
So like you need like tremendous amount of brand awareness, right? Where people appreciate it for the brand, like a lot of these brands to have here, right? So if it's not that and it's something just very basic, they can easily just take over that, right? And people, like when you go on Amazon, right, and you're ordering something, if it's something that's kind of not important, you don't care what brand it is.
Yeah.
Even like fast fashion.
Yeah.
From China.
Yeah.
There's so much of that, right? Like Zara and stuff. Those stores. Yeah. A lot of fast fashion.
But what do you think about his idea of this 400% tariff stuff?
Do you think he's just pulling that number out? Like he seems angry.
He does seem angry.
He is angry. He seems like he tried to
China.
he tried to sue a lot of Chinese companies, it seems like. But I think his approach is that like he wants it's to cut a deal, because what he's saying is probably true. If they actually upped it to 400, Xi probably is cutting a deal right away.
I mean, I don't know. I think that thing can it can go two ways, right?
Yeah.
Like one is you do that, they're like, oh, we're in trouble, right? Because of everything that happened with Evergrande and the economic landscape of China, right? They're Evergrande, if you don't know, it's the biggest real estate developer there, right? They completely collapsed, right? They have ghost cities there where nobody's living. In the real estate market, they completely collapsed, right? Like people were taking out massive mortgages before these condos were even built. They were like, it was like a lottery system was going on there, right? And then this whole thing just completely collapsed, and now there's people that are protesting all over the place, and there's people that are actually angry in China, right?
Yeah.
And I even saw this one clip is making the rounds, an older clip of this guy protesting in China, and he's like, yeah, Donald Trump, don't trust China. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, he's Chinese protesting in China saying that, right? So people don't realize that there is some outrage there, right? And if you're gonna make a country suffer economically, I think like this would be the time where, you might get Xi to the table. Yeah. Right? Like he's saying, right?
Yeah.
But then again, if you push him too hard, right? The Chinese people, or the government at least, and people also, they're very prideful.
For sure.
Right? If you back somebody into a corner you don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
Right? They've been making these remarks about, reunification with Taiwan.
Yeah.
Right? Like if everyone's concerned about Iran and everyone's concerned about what's happening in the Middle East, if China decided to go for Taiwan,
Yeah.
we're having completely different conversations.
For sure. Yeah. It's like, you can only push them so far. Just as prideful as the U.S. is, China's probably just as prideful, right? But they both now have raised tariffs up to 125, I think it is now on China, right?
The U.S. is
140, sorry.
The U.S. has like 140 something.
Yeah, yeah.
I think China responded with 125.
And they said they're not going to go any further.
Yeah.
And we don't know where they stand right now.
Yeah. Outside of China, right? Like we understand what's happening there with Taiwan and all that stuff, right? There's also Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And then when you look at Europe, Trump first hit Europe with 20% tariffs, right? That he did on Liberation Day. But before that, I think he had already imposed 25% on aluminum and steel, right? And then the EU retaliated to that by slapping the US with $23 billion on tariff on US goods, right?
Yeah.
And then Trump comes out and he's like, there's going to be a 90-day pause on tariffs on any country that didn't retaliate against the US. Then the EU, they immediately paused their retaliatory tariffs, right? And the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, I think that's how you say her name, said, and I quote, "That's why I've consistently advocated for a 0-for-0 tariff agreement between the European Union and the United States," which would be a massive deal.
For sure.
Right? And this is something that Kevin O'Leary also knows about, right? And here's him once again talking about it on CNN.
The Eurozone just 48 hours ago said something remarkable. For the first time in decades, we're willing to go to 0 on 0. That means they open up all markets to all products, all services. That's a huge win. So forget about Israel or Thailand or Cambodia. We're talking about one of the largest economies on earth saying, okay, we get the joke. You want to sell cars? You want to sell a Corvette in Berlin? We're okay at 0. We've never had that before. So let's call that a huge win. We haven't done the deal yet, but let's get the German people over here to start negotiating that. Agriculture in Britain will go to 0 on 0. Canada, we'll love to do energy 0 on 0. So that's a huge win for him. Huge. And I'm telling you, there's a difference between getting everybody at 0 on 0, which is free trade basically, which for Trump would be a huge win. That call 48 hours ago, when the Eurozone said, okay, uncle, we'll go to 0, take that win. It's a huge win. Now, getting trade deficits settled, that's going to take decades because we are the largest economy on earth by a factor of 2.5 times. We're always going to have deficits.
That's the thing nobody discusses openly. Trade deficits, erasing those is going to take a decade.
Yeah.
First time I heard anybody say it publicly.
Yeah, I mean, with Europe, I feel like there's been this recent conversation about like cars.
Yeah.
Right? And everyone's been talking about like, you see BMWs, Audis, Mercedes-Benz, you'll see all of that.
Yeah.
Right. You'll see a lot of it in the States too. Right. But then you don't really see Fords, GMs, Cadillacs. Right. You don't see them in Europe. Right. And like people talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking like, okay, how much of that has to do with tariffs, right? Yeah. Which it does. I think in the UK, their tariffs somewhere between 20 to 30% when I was roughly looking at it, somewhere in that ballpark, right? And how much of it has to do with like an Escalade, right? Which is like a big boat, right?
Yeah.
Driving down a small street.
Yeah, wouldn't even fit.
Right? Yeah. And like how many of them buy like F-150s? Like you think about American cars, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure, a Corvette, right? In certain areas, sure, right?
Yeah.
Or a Mustang or something, right? But like if you're looking at like their cars are more comparable, like they're small cars.
Wide cars wouldn't bode well there.
Yeah. Even SUVs, like they prefer like a lot of hatchbacks.
Yeah.
Right? Like normal average people, right? Obviously rich people with massive houses probably have like all different types of cars, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like on average, like they're not really into American cars, right?
Yeah, but logistically, like you're saying, I don't even think it makes sense. Have you guys ever seen a pickup truck in Europe? I haven't.
Yeah,
Like
maybe
on
the
the
demand
street?
isn't even there.
I mean, last time we were in Paris or Italy,
Like really
or
small little
little cars.
Yeah. Because think about their streets. Think about how many lanes they have.
Exactly.
The crazy
Like-
driving. Like think about Paris, for example.
yeah, like do you see mopeds here?
Yeah.
Right? Or
Exactly.
scooters?
Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't see them.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of those. Yeah.
And imagine if there was like, oh, there's a massive tariff on scooters, mopeds, and stuff, right? And they lifted it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not like you're gonna see so many more of them just because
Yeah.
they lifted the tariff, right? Like we just don't. They're not. We don't drive them here, right?
He was talking specifically about Eurozone only, right? So that would exclude like UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. UK would. He'd probably. He's. It seems like what he's trying to do is this 0 for 0 thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is like people are saying that he's being a protectionist. He's pretty much making global free trade if he does that, which is massive.
But is that what he wants?
That's
Free trade?
huge.
Why
I
wouldn't you
think
want
everyone-
that if
every
you're
country
not the
would want
US?
that.
No, not every country wants it. Right now, the US has an unfair deal, right? Everyone makes money off the US,
Yeah.
and it doesn't go
That's
the
what I
other
mean.
way.
I don't know if Trump wants free trade because he's just trying to get rid of the deficit. No, isn't that his goal?
No.
No, why wouldn't he want total free trade, right? Because right now, BMWs, Mercedes, all of them, they come here, right,
Right.
and they're 0%, right?
Yeah.
That's why people buy them, right? And if they get an F-150 there, they're gonna get tariff 20 to 30% more, right? So like that's gonna cost way more money, so they're
Yeah.
not gonna buy it. If there is some European alternative to F-150, I don't even know what it is. Right. Like, I don't think any of these companies make pickup trucks. But if there was, right, like it would be 30, 40% cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. So you wouldn't. It's the same reason you would see, I think, even in India, right? Like, just generally having a conversation with people, I would ask them, I remember when I was younger, like, why don't you guys drive like American cars or like, you know, the kind of cars we're used to seeing in North America? And they would just be like, tax.
Yeah.
It's a lot of tax. And as a kid, I didn't understand it. But then you think about it now. you're
crazy
like,
amount of
yeah,
tariffs.
Yeah, the
So
tariffs
it
are
says
probably
in
crazy.
Europe, the best-selling pickup truck is a Ford Ranger. This is
A Ranger.
That's a mid-sized pickup.
Who the hell buys a Ranger?
It is actually. I think it's popular in Australia as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
here buys a Ranger.
I mean, people do.
Yeah,
but they're frowned upon. They're not truck people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's how people consider them. But yeah, I feel like it's like the 0 for 0 thing would be pretty massive, right?
Huge.
But I don't know. If this whole thing works out with what he's doing, if these countries are coming to the table,
Yeah.
right? Like they could be a W for him.
Yeah, if it's all masked around getting rid of the deficits and the border, like Canada, whatever excuses he's using to start all this, if it ends up in global free trade and no income tax, this guy's gonna go down as one of the greatest presidents ever. If he can pull that off,
Yeah.
That's
that's a
scary
huge thing to pull off.
Because, you know, like you can get mad all you want, but every other country has the opportunity to put capitalistic ideas and incentivize their country to be more of a capitalist country, and they refuse to do so.
Yeah.
Right. And they have a lot of liberal policies. Not saying that there's not a time and place for these things.
Yeah.
But they all kind of move lock, step, and barrel. Right.
sure.
Like Europe, Canada. Like they're all kind of for the last decade or so. Right. So you put yourself in these situations.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, imagine if you like, I don't want to be so pro Trump or anything.
Yeah.
Right. But like looking at that, if you're the US, right, you're like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
You're going to continue tariffing us?
Yeah.
But yeah, then there's Canada,
Yeah.
right? So Canada got hit with these 25% tariffs, right?
Yeah.
For goods that don't comply with the USMCA, right? But there's no tariffs on goods that do,
Okay.
right? And then there's a 25% tariff on Canadian aluminum and steel, unless and a 25% on tariff on all foreign-made vehicles entering the U.S. unless they also comply with the USMCA,
Okay.
right? And then Canada responded to that, and they hit U.S. with a 25% tariff on U.S.-made vehicles that don't comply with the USMCA, right? So they're kind of doing tit for tat.
Yeah.
And then I read the rules a little bit on the USMCA, right? And so passenger vehicles and light trucks must have at least 75% of their components sourced in North America. And between 40 and 45% of vehicles content must be produced by workers earning at least $16 an hour, and at least 70% of the steel and aluminum used in the cars must originate in North America. Right.
That's pretty
and
specific.
then I started thinking, like, how many cars and vehicles actually comply with the USMCA?
Yeah.
And I was Googling it. I couldn't get an exact number, but from various different sources, it was around 90%.
Oh,
Right. So 90% of the cars that are going back and forth comply with the USMCA.
Yeah.
Right. So I started thinking, and I'm like, why is everyone saying these auto tariffs are such a big deal then?
yeah.
Right. But I think it's because of supply chain issues.
For
Right.
sure, yeah.
Because if a lot of them are complying with the USMCA, and there's kind of a positive there.
Yeah.
Right. Like the rest of the world's getting slapped with a 10% tariff baseline. Right.
Yeah.
Even when he's saying this 90-day pause, every other country,
10%.
that's 10%. Right. If you're retaliating, then it's whatever he set in place for these countries.
Yeah.
Right. For Canada, if majority of the goods comply with the USMCA, it's zero.
Yeah.
It's still 0%.
Yeah.
Right. But then that didn't stop these companies from these layoffs.
Yeah, there's layoffs all over the place, mainly in the auto sector, like you were saying, right? Stellantis said it's temporarily laying off 900 workers at 5 different plants
Yeah.
in the U.S., and they paused production at the assembly plant in Windsor they had just built.
Yeah.
They paused production there entirely. And GM, the plant in Ingersoll, is going to shut down next month and reopen in the fall at half capacity.
Yeah.
So they employ 1,200 workers.
Yeah.
In a statement, they said when production resumes in October, the plant will operate on a single shift for the foreseeable future, a reduction that's expected to result in the indefinite layoff of 500 workers.
Yeah.
So that's
Crazy.
the auto sector. Steel and metal, there's a Canadian metal processing group. They laid off 140 employees in Ontario and Quebec. And then the transportation sector, like trucking, 32% of carriers have laid off employees, and 62% are anticipating further layoffs or slowdown
Yeah.
in transportation.
So you see all of that, right? And like I was talking about USMCA. So like to me, I'm just like, these tariffs they're already hurting Canada.
Yeah.
Right? Like look at all those jobs lost, right? And if it's not your job, it's easy to say like, you know, it's okay. The number isn't as big as it can be or whatever. But bro, like in these small towns,
Yeah.
like Ingersoll, like people depend on those jobs.
Yeah.
Right? And people's hearts skip a beat every time Trump says anything about tariffs because they're like, you know, like you work there, it maybe, you know, the husband works there in Windsor somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And like maybe he's a breadwinner, maybe
How
he
many
bought a new
families
house.
did that affect?
Right.
So many.
Imagine the stress of like losing that job every time, especially in the auto sector. Like it's so fragile,
Yeah.
right? But that's why I feel like what's going to end up happening in Canada's case, like they're going to try to go for the 0 for 0. And I think they're going to
Yeah.
try to get basically free energy.
Yeah.
Not free, but like at zero tax, right?
Yeah.
Which Canada then makes less money, right? But what do you think? Do you think there's any other way that Canada can negotiate somewhat of a better deal?
I don't know. It's tough because with this guy, you got to let him get a win. He's got to win somewhere. He's not going to just, even if you go 0 for 0, I don't think he just openly accepts that. And that's more beneficial to them, right?
So like my argument there would be what I've been saying, like you go 0 for 0, right? So no country, Canada's not getting heavily taxed on certain things, right? And
Yeah.
then you say, listen, we're going to build up our military, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, that's 2 birds, 1 stone. I already feel like Canada should be building up their military,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Because I think Canada's military isn't the strongest, especially when you look at the G7, right? And you look at conventional warfare, like we haven't been spending that much
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
right? Because we do rely heavily on the US, right?
Poilievre talked about it, right? And setting up a military base and none of it.
Yeah, you're
Has
saying
he brought it up again?
it hasn't really been a topic of conversation because I don't think too many Canadians at this point are even concerned about military whatsoever, right? It's all about money.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
That's the only
we all know this is going to be the money election, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all about who's going to save what money. And that's why this banker that comes in, Mark Carney, right? People are like, oh, you know, governor.
He knows
of the bank.
money.
Yeah, he knows money,
I
right?
guess,
Maybe it's
yeah.
him. Maybe he's the guy, right?
Yeah.
But like, I feel like negotiating these tariffs, like when you look at like on a number standpoint, I'm like, it's not that bad, right?
Yeah.
Because I did also start to do a little bit of research, and apparently there are industries that can somewhat, get more jobs and more investment in Canada, because you're like, hey, listen, we get 0% tariffs if we comply with the USMCA. Hey guys, if you guys invest in Canada, there's ways to figure this out and but that's not what Trump wants, right?
Yeah.
The second you start doing that, you're getting around these tariffs, right?
Exactly.
Like I think Mexico was trying to do it in the auto sector before. China was trying to do it through Mexico or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of weird things happening, right? So
sure.
before all of this stuff starts getting weird, it's probably better for Canada to do a deal ASAP, but this guy wants to take it slow and steady, right? Like he wants to let this stuff simmer.
For sure.
Right?
But so many workers in the U.S. also lost their jobs because of the tariffs. So, like, how is this benefiting them? What's the point?
I think his whole idea is like a couple of things. I think one is, if I had to like sum it all up, right, with Europe, China, and Canada, I think with China, he's saying he wants to bring back manufacturing, right, to get more jobs,
America.
right? But I think there's also something hidden under that. It's intellectual property theft that Kevin O'Leary was talking about. It's also stuff like this TikTok stuff, and China likes to, mess around and do a couple little things, right? Like, and then I think with Europe, it's this whole thing that, their products aren't heavily tariffed in the US, but vice versa. There's massive tariffs, right? You don't see, American companies thriving, like especially in the auto sector, like we were talking about.
Sure.
And then with Canada, it's like we're their biggest trading partner, right? So as much as we might think like, hey, listen, if we do 0 for 0 or whatever, he might agree. I think he sees cash cow revenue source.
Yeah.
Right? If you trade so much with a country and they're so heavily reliant on you, and you are like this business shark, what are you gonna do? You're gonna be like, hey, I can make some money here.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the whole idea there is to make money, right, off of Canada. Right. So if Canada wants to like get out of this somehow, you have to a little bit bring some cards to the table, which let them make some money off of you.
I think that's what it is. What O'Leary was even saying, 0 for 0 on energy.
Yeah, that's
like,
what
we'll
that
take
is.
that.
Yeah.
Because we need a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then we'll tariff you somewhere along the line.
That's why I feel like when Carney was recently, I think I was reading somewhere where he said that he's not going to get rid of the C69 pipeline, new pipeline bill, right? Yeah. Whereas like our pipeline, from what I know, right, it goes in Canada, then it cuts through the States and it comes back into Canada.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't ship it anywhere else, right? Because we don't have an east to west pipeline, right? If we did, then we can ship it to Europe, right? But right now we have no other customers. US is our only customer, right? And this guy is saying that he doesn't want to do that. Right? Why? Because I'm assuming it's something to do with climate and carbon or whatever he thinks, right? There's also this argument that Canada has so many trees, and what do trees consume? Carbon, right? Like, we're probably already at net zero. There's so many things out there that when you start looking at them, you're just like, a lot of that other stuff seems a little bit ridiculous, right?
For sure.
But then when you look at Poilievre, his whole platform is, like he was saying, he wants to build a military. It's also that he wants to incentivize businesses in Canada, right? Incentivize these pipelines, right? And like you look at that and I'm just like, man, like I don't know what Canadians don't see. This isn't like a social issue election where you're like, yo, man, there's some things going on. People are really racist. Like we need to get rid of the right wing. No, it's about money, right? Like everything that we struggle with, all these people getting laid off, all of it, it's all about money. Right? So yes, that guy sounds like a banker, but his policies are like, he's going to still stay with the liberal agenda. He's not going to change from it. Right. And they're going to be the same policies.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's move on to Apple. So last week when the market crashed, right? Apple stock obviously fell, right?
Yeah.
And then they came out and said that they can't, there's no way that they're going to be able to move their entire production into the US, right?
Yeah.
And then articles started surfacing about iPhone prices are going to skyrocket. People are saying $2,000, $3,000, right? And then Apple keeps tanking in the market, right? And then Trump basically comes out and goes, Well, I got another pause, right? It's on. It's on.
I can't believe he can do that.
Right.
He does whatever he wants.
This one's on smartphones,
Yeah.
laptops, memory chips, and some other electronics, right?
Yeah.
And all of this are going to be exempt from tariffs,
Yeah.
right?
The crazy thing is 70% of U.S. electronics are imported from China.
Wow.
That's insane. And so Apple ended up losing their number one spot to Microsoft. They do flip-flop all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of relevant, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been lobbying against these tariffs because they're saying that it will give competitors, Samsung,
Mm-hmm.
a competitive advantage, right? Because they make theirs in Taiwan, I think, their phones.
They do. Also, Samsung, from what I know,
Yeah.
they used to do the screens and stuff all in-house. I think even Apple used to use them. I don't know if they still use them for the Retina displays, but they
Yeah.
used to, right?
So they would save a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they also said that just a 15% shift from China would take up to 3 years to implement.
Yeah.
So if you do the math on that, you're looking at like 15 to completely get out of China,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not even feasible. It's
No.
not something that they
No, it
would
doesn't.
do.
It wouldn't make sense for them. And I think when Trump just says these things, like again, he's just trying to. It's a generic statement, right? And then you get all of these phone calls
Pushback,
and all of
yeah.
this pushback, and you're like, maybe there's something here, right? And I, even when he did the 90-day pause, I don't know if you saw his press conference. He's like. I'm doing what's I'm paraphrasing here, but he was like, I'm doing what's best for the states, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, and then a bunch of people got all yippee, right? So I was just like, we're gonna pause him for 90
Shut up.
days, right? Like,
Yeah.
Because, like, didn't he know this before? I'm pretty sure all these yippie people, like, advised him from before.
For sure.
And
but
then
he's
he went back and now he's taking the tariffs off.
Yeah, he's like, let's try it out. And then it really starts affecting things, and the stock market starts tanking and things start happening. Then
I mean-
versus course.
imagine though, like when he says, like you know how he was saying in that speech the video we played earlier.
Yeah.
He's like, when these things are put into these articles and the news media starts running with it, it starts making negotiations more difficult.
Yeah.
Imagine if China then goes, oh, you guys want these phones? All right, 70% export tax, right? Like they're hurting their own economy,
Yeah.
right? But they're effectively telling you guys, no more iPhones,
Yeah.
right? Like
Sure.
it can get messy,
Yeah.
right? So like what he's doing is like, at this point, like he's like, oh, electronics hurt us. All right, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why even when Canada retaliated, they had like select different goods that they were, attacking. A lot of the way to usually do that strategically is to do it with like some sort of idea of like, hey, listen, we can't hurt our own citizens that much, right?
Yeah.
So we have to pick and choose what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like we saw Portnoy, he was like, yo, he's just randomly choosing random formulas. He's like, he has no clue.
It's Jarrah City.
Yeah. But that's us talking about it. But here's a clip from Dave Chappelle from 7 years ago, believe it or not.
7 years.
He was talking about iPhones and jobs in China.
That's great.
I feel like that's very true. That's why they took the labor to China in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Did you guys see there's a bunch of like Chinese creators making these like AI generated
Yeah.
videos of like what it would
I
be
saw
like for Americans to
Yeah.
work these factory jobs, and it's just like obese
Yeah.
Americans like eating Cheetos, working very slowly,
Yeah.
and like it's supposed to be like
Propaganda.
me,
Yeah.
but it's like to some extent it's probably a little true.
I feel like you have a little bit of a point there, but I feel like they're just messing around trying to belittle Americans a little bit. But like what this guy is saying about those jobs, like how you're saying,
Yeah.
who like does any
Them.
They're not in high demand.
It's right what he's saying. We don't
Yeah.
want Chinese jobs.
That's crazy. He said it 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so relevant now.
So relevant.
Right? It's wild, man. I feel like Dave Chappelle, whenever this guy's comedy though, whenever he's speaking,
Yeah.
he's so good at storytelling.
For sure. Yeah.
Right? And the way that he delivers that,
Yeah.
it's, it's still resonating 7 years later.
It's wild.
But yeah, let's move on to Trump getting accused, of insider trading.
Yeah, that was another thing that came out of all this, the pausing and everything. So hours, like 3 hours before announcing this tariff pause, the 90-day pause, he put out a post on Truth Social. And he said that this is a great time to buy. And he signed off with his, DTJ or DJT. This is a great time to buy, right? DJT. He never really does that, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't really sign off with that.
Yeah.
So after the pause, we all know like the stock skyrocketed, right?
Yeah.
Why that sign off is relevant. DJT is his stock ticker for his company, Trump Media and Technology Group, whose stock rose 22%.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like insider trading. It's not only does it feel like insider trading, that's bold as hell.
Yeah.
He puts the ticker symbol there. It's like I'm doing it and what?
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to think of it. I think the other way would be, is it actually illegal? Right? Because for it to be insider trading, you would have to have this intent on manipulating the market, right? For political or personal gain, right?
Yeah.
Which, if you're saying it's a ticker symbol for his company, excuse me, if it's a ticker symbol for his company that you can, I think, arrive at that opinion that he's doing it for some sort of financial gain.
Yeah.
But then again, they went up 22%, so did the rest of the market, right?
Exactly.
Like the entire market rebounded, and then the next day, the entire market went right back down, right? It's a stock market that happens, right? And I feel like a lot of the presidents and politicians, they say a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to look at insider trading, maybe somebody should look at Nancy Pelosi and her portfolio, right? How does somebody who makes a couple $100,000 a year, right? Like how do you have like hundreds of millions of dollars in your
So after
investing
you made
portfolio?
that post, did a lot of people buy that stock?
But yeah, it went up 22%. I don't know if a lot of people bought it, but it did. What he's saying is
they all went
completely
up?
correct.
Yeah.
Everything went up, right?
Yeah.
People are going, oh, Tesla jumped. Every single stock jumped, and then it fell the next day. The only thing that like caught me off guard, I didn't even know that. I looked into it, the sign off thing, because he never does that. He'll just put his full name, or he'll say Donald, whatever, the president. He put the ticker symbol, man.
If I'm being honest, I don't watch his posts enough.
Yeah.
Like I don't watch him like that closely whenever I read a post by Trump.
Maybe he has.
I don't know if he has or hasn't, right? Also, the world we live in, you just need a reason to make something a headline, right?
Pull out strings.
Yeah. So like, and at the end of the day, he's not a dumb guy, right? He knows what he can and cannot say, right? Like he's the president, right? Like they tried to get him on how many charges, right? How many times all these indictments, right? What we even saw before that in his previous presidency, the impeachment and the Russia collusion stuff and all of that, right? So they've been trying to get at him for years, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of like when you see that, you're like, are they pulling the strings again? Then if you look at it on a legal side, it's very, very, very difficult
to prove
to prove what his intent was, right? You don't know what his intent was, right? So like I feel like you can read into it, and we read into conspiracy theories all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, like I don't know the man, right? Like did he have some sort of intent? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But legally speaking, I don't think he crossed a line where you would have some sort of legal case there. Right?
I almost think that like this guy has comedic timing. We saw his clip, right? He's kind of a comedian. He probably ran it past the team. He's like, "Can I do this?" He gave it a shot. He probably wanted people talking about it. I don't know.
I think it's a little bit of like what we were talking about before, right? Like when people are saying that he's crashing the dollar on purpose, right? Or this 0 for 0 thing, right? I think things just happen, and he sees the market, and he's like, "Good time to buy," right? Like,
I think he's on his phone making these posts.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you don't know Trump. Like anytime.
I don't think I've ever seen him use his phone. He seems around the age where it might be difficult for him.
You're not wrong there.
Maybe he just says it and somebody else posts it for him.
I don't know. The social posts specifically seem like they're coming out of his mouth.
That's what I was going to say. If you ever read them, they sound like how he talks, right? So like it doesn't seem like to me.
But that person just could be really good at their job.
Yeah, maybe he is just talking and someone's just typing it.
Well, I mean, they could be, right? But like they seem like his ideas.
Yeah.
Did the White House tweet the other day? Remember you were telling me?
What was it?
They were like, let him...
Oh, let him cook. Did
Yeah.
you see that?
Tweeted that?
The White House's, I think it was their Twitter account.
Yeah.
They posted a picture.
Crazy that they just post like.
Yeah, they posted a picture of him and JD Vance.
Yeah.
And it said, let him cook.
The White House social media is so out of pocket.
This one's crazy.
I don't know who's
They don't
running
care,
that, but
Really? I feel like it's funny, man.
It is funny.
It's entertaining to me. I'm like, this is the world we
the
live
wrong account to like be entertaining somewhere else.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be serious.
But yeah, let's move on to Canadians are considering refinancing their mortgages. Okay, so there's this article in the Financial Post, and it says rates like 3.99% have mortgages increasingly jumping at refinancing opportunities to trim their payments or tap into home equity. All the recent rate cut speculation is only turbocharging this enthusiasm. In fact, refinances seem to comprise a fast-growing share of mortgages. While Canada doesn't have timely industry-wide mortgage data like the US, refinancing in March rose 8 percentage points year over year at Canada's biggest mortgage originator, the Dominion Lending Center Group. Purchase volumes tumbled by a similar amount. These guys are basically saying that people might want to consider refinancing, right? But you're the Bank of Canada, how it hasn't really signaled any plan to raise rates anytime soon.
Yeah. Like, I don't know about you guys, me personally, every time we get around rate cut time, the meeting, I start getting calls from my bank. So I like so many that I don't even pick them up, right? So do you think it's a little bit of it, even these articles might just be them trying to get a deal? Because the bank obviously wants you to pay the most interest that they can get out.
Also coming around that time, like remember how low interest rates were during the pandemic?
Yeah.
And everyone like locked it in.
Yeah.
They're coming up for renewal.
And they're scared of that too, right? They don't want super low rates, and everyone locks in at low rates, right?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about the same thing, and I haven't checked it in a while, but like there's a lot of mortgages that were up for renewal in 2025, and then a lot of them by 2026. I think there's like
crazy
40,
amount.
like 40 or 50. I think like 80% of the mortgages are going to be renewed in the next 2 years.
Next 2 years,
So some of those people are going to refi, right? But if you're going to refi, you would think like housing price values, right? Despite what the market is saying, I don't think those appraisal numbers are going to come in where people are expecting.
For sure, yeah.
So if that's the case, I don't know how much equity you're pulling out of the house. Like if you're doing it for that reason, right? If you're locking in a rate, right? If you already have like a fixed rate mortgage, it's not worth the penalty to break it for this. Right? If you have a variable rate mortgage, then it's going up and down. Obviously, you can switch it to a fixed whenever you want. Right, without renegotiating the terms, just the rest of that term that you have left. But I don't know. If the Bank of Canada hasn't signaled whatsoever that they're raising rates, right? And if we're looking at inflation, it went down below 2%. Then it came back up because of holiday tax cuts, right? And then I think in February, what was it at? Like 2.6, 2.7%, somewhere around there. I'm sure right now it's probably hovering around somewhere around 3%, right? Unemployment went to what? I think it went to like 6.4, jumped up to like 6.8. Last month it was like 6.7, right? I think we lost 33,000 jobs in February or something like that, right? So if you look at all of that, historically, that's not crazy numbers, right? That's not something to cause a concern for rate hikes. Right?
I mean, like in my opinion, the dollar is climbing now, or the US is falling, however you want to look at it. And there's a lot of indication that the US bank is about to cut rates as well, right? So if divergence and the dollar divergence and the rate divergence matters to the bank so much, and these tariffs, like everything's pointing towards either pausing or cutting. There's no signal of an increase. So if you're looking at it that way, why not wait it out a bit?
Yeah, if you're going to look at it like that. And then the rest of it is kind of like it depends on you, right? Your risk tolerance, who you are as a person, whether or not this is your long-term home, whether or not you're trying to plan to make some sort of moves, right? Like there's a bunch of people the kind of people who are going to stand on the sideline if you're an investor or a primary home buyer, you're just going to stay standing on the sideline.
Always be there.
Like the mortgage rates are going to go up and down, right? They've been incredibly high. They've been incredibly low, and people continue to stand on the sidelines, right? And we've seen it in the stock market. They'll always tell you it's not timing the market, it's time in the market, right? So anyone who's always like trying to time these things, you oftentimes lose,
impossible,
right?
yeah.
But if you currently have a variable rate mortgage, like this isn't financial advice, but like
Yeah.
what I would do is like you just follow the Bank of Canada.
Yeah.
They clearly let you know at least a month in advance, like,
Yeah.
hey guys, next meeting,
going up.
we're gonna probably raise the rates,
Yeah.
right? And you'll see the writing on the wall. If you
Yeah.
look at the labor market, if you look at the inflation data, you'll see the writing on the wall
Yeah.
if rates are going up or
Yeah.
not, right? Like if inflation jumps up to 4%, you could be like, maybe a quarter point,
Something's
rate
happening, yeah.
hike is coming.
For
right?
sure, yeah.
But like if none of that's happening, it's not rocket science, right? Like,
Yeah.
but maybe I think like the average, you also, the other thing about it is you also got to think of like the mortgage industry and the real estate industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if mortgage agents or brokers or real estate agents are telling you, hey guys, might be a good time to refinance,
Yeah.
right? They're the people that make money
Exactly.
off of refis.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But what is the benefit exactly of refinancing?
So if you have a higher rate right now, right? Let's say if your rate was, I don't know, above 5%, and they're saying in this article that some rates are as low as 3.99 for fixed rate. I didn't look at what 5-year fix was, right? But it's somewhere around there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like I think the variable's sitting around like 4.5, somewhere
Yeah.
around there, 4.5 to 5, right? So like if you're gonna refinance it, you're gonna drop that to 3.99. You could be saving yourself a couple $100 a month, right? Because it's less of an interest rate. That would be one benefit, and the other one would be you don't know what people's situations are, right? Maybe somebody's actually been living in their house for 7, 8, 9 years. And even though house values might have decreased a little bit, maybe they've taken on a lot of debt to get through this time period. Maybe they've, I don't know, went through all of their savings and now they want to refinance, pay off that debt, throw it all into the house basically, right?
Okay.
And like have that kind of situation going on. So
Yeah.
people have different situations, different reasons for why
Yeah.
they would refinance.
Yeah.
But typically from an investor
I was
side,
going to say, like, the equity, take it and invest it.
Yeah.
yeah, but that you would do if you like, again, not financial advice, but like me personally, I would wait till interest rates get a lot lower, right? And watch the markets really tightly.
Yeah.
And if I want to make a move, right? Because then you want to take that money out, lock it in for 5 years, and then have a plan of where that money's getting invested, whether it's real estate stocks or whatever the hell you do.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, there's talk of the stock market crashing, right? In Canada, there's more concern about the housing market, right? And one of the main concerns there is obviously affordability. So we do have a clip on Pierre Poilievre and how he hopes to tackle housing and affordability.
Why isn't housing dirt cheap? And the answer is government. We have in Ontario today, a third of the cost of a new home is direct taxes. So that's the sales tax, land transfer tax, and development taxes by municipalities. Then another roughly 20% is soft government costs, delays, consultants, lobbyists, lawyers, accountants, all of which you need just to get the permit to put the shovel in the ground. If we could cut that cost, we would have very affordable housing. So, like I said, I'm going to take the sales tax off, but I'm also going to be imposing new conditions on municipalities that get for federal infrastructure money, that they have to do rapid permitting, they have to cut their development charges. I will be doing an announcement in the next several days that will massively incentivize them to cut their development taxes by tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And then I'm going to sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to convert to housing so that we can increase the supply. Prices are set by supply and demand. We have the fewest homes per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. So when you go out as a young person to buy a home, you're competing with a lot of other people on a very scarce number of homes. The relief that you ultimately are going to get is when we have more homes. And so I do see rent will be coming down. We'll be moderating mortgage payments, and incomes will outgrow housing costs again. So if we don't need more bureaucracy, more government spending, what we need is governments to get out of the way and off the backs of home builders so that we can add millions of new affordable homes for the next generation to buy.
Yeah, he's saying it again. That's everything I'm with.
He's saying he wants to get rid of the sales tax, so land transfer tax is still there.
Yeah.
Okay.
He hasn't openly said.
He hasn't said anything about land transfer tax, but he said a couple of things about what's going on with the taxes there.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think what he's mainly talking about there is new homes,
Yeah.
right? And he's
Which
trying.
don't have land transfer tax anyways, right?
There's land transfer tax on everything. Oh, not on a new build.
Yeah.
No, is there?
I thought there wasn't. I could be.
I think there still is from the builder, right?
Yeah, I think there still is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what he's talking about there is less government intervention, right? And cutting tax, bureaucracy, and like incentivizing building. All things that I think could help, because there's some real fear that a bit of a housing bubble is already developing here. And because we're so reliant, our GDP is basically housing, majority of it. There's talk that like more people should be concerned about this than just the stocks.
Than just the stock market. Yeah, I feel like a housing bubble in Canada, if you go do some research and you Google it, you can already see that Canada, and I believe it's Australia, they're some of the most vulnerable housing markets on the planet.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a lot of analysts that will tell you, or you can even read up on it, that Canada is actually the worst when it comes to housing bubbles right now, right?
Yeah.
And they should be scared of it. Nobody knows when this bubble is going to pop, right? But it's there, right?
Yeah.
And it's been increasing, right? It's mainly due to these massive mortgages, right? Which happened because of such high price in homes, right? You have a lot of speculative real estate investment going on, right? You had a lot of foreign investment going on, which has now tapered off because they paused it for a couple of years. I think in 2026, it comes
Toronto
back.
condo market, right? That was crazy.
Toronto condo market, Vancouver condo market. There's a lot of, then they started doing this empty home thing where they're vacant home tax or whatever that was. But if you go look at like Spain, for example, as a case study, right?
Yeah.
The only difference between what happened in the Great Spanish Recession, you can say, which was just, I think, like during the 08 financial recession when the whole world was going through it.
Yeah.
If you looked at Spain, the kind of housing bubble that they had there is very reminiscent to what's going on in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
You had highly leveraged homes. You had people doing whatever they could to buy homes, right? Which the one thing that differs, though, is the shady lending practices, right? Because in Spain, they had like these cajas, which are basically like credit unions, right? And people were getting mortgages from these people and they weren't really checking papers. There was a lot of like shady lending practices going on. So that is a big difference.
Yeah.
That was also happening in the States, right?
Yeah.
When I recently heard people saying that there should be more banks in the States, right? And especially on the lower level, there's a lot of people talking about there needs to be more banks. But that is a part of what caused the 08 financial crisis, right? If you're going to have
loans or whatever.
no income, no jobs. Yeah. So then like if you look at all of that, right, there is this aspect to, I feel like Canada is in a housing bubble. Everyone knows it's been in a housing bubble for a long time now, right? And there's not many people, you can talk about like house prices coming down. Most Canadians who own homes probably don't want house prices to come down, for being honest.
Yeah.
Right? You think that you do.
Yeah.
But how many Canadians would be underwater on their mortgages because of how leveraged they are?
For sure.
Right? So it's
the
weird
younger
situation.
Canadians that can't get into homes that want the prices to drop.
Yeah. And I can't imagine, like, if he's gonna cut the price of newer homes, sure.
Yeah.
Like eventually it's gonna get there. And if you build a lot more homes, supply and demand. If there's more demand, you lessen supply because there's less, you take immigration out of it. Now there's not this rampant spending on like trying to buy these rental properties, right? And interest rates stay at bay. Theoretically, all of it can work, right? Housing prices can come down a bit as they should, right?
Yeah.
Or incomes should go up.
Yeah.
Right? Because comparable in the States, like to get a house like we have, I think it's half the price.
Yeah.
The kind of houses that we own here.
The ones I see in
Right?
Texas,
Texas is always it.
it's like 400 grand. You have
So
this mansion with a
beautiful,
pool,
right?
All this stuff.
The things that would cost like $3 million here.
Right.
Like $3 to $4 million.
Yeah.
But I heard it's also really hard to get a job in Texas. So you can have this massive house, but you also have to afford.
And some of them are on the outskirts, like where you don't even want to live.
Yeah.
Right.
But you can't even find that in Canada.
No.
And
They're
any outskirts.
beautiful.
Go
And
wherever
imagine
you
the
want.
weather.
No, those kind of houses you can try to buy anywhere in Canada. They're going to be expensive.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
But that's it for the stories. Let's move on to off topic.
Did you hear about the Dominican Republic collapse of the roof on the club?
Oh,
I did.
Yeah.
So it's like a very popular club in Dominican Republic, the Jet Set nightclub. And a lot of people were there for a merengue concert for the singer named Ruby Perez. And like over 200 people died because the roof just collapsed
Wow.
on top of people. So we have like quick video of it. Someone caught it on film.
Oh,
Oh shit.
Gee.
Like so scary. And then like people were stuck in the rubble and it took them like days to like find people and get them out.
yeah.
And then there was actually a lot of like US citizens as well. There was like former baseball players and stuff in there too. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, like Blue Jays players.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think I saw Pedro Martinez, I think it is.
Was it him?
No, he wasn't there.
Oh,
He
he's
said a
talking about
bunch
it,
of his like family even was there and stuff.
Yeah. So what happened here? Was it like a construction issue or a?
they said they don't know for sure. But then I also seen reports of like it's been struck by lightning a few times in the past. There were over capacity, but again, those can just be like rumors. Like there hasn't been anything confirmed.
Yeah.
The integrity wasn't good.
Yeah, but like how insane is that? Like in 2025, that there is buildings where so many people attend that the structural integrity can be
It's a really
that
popular
bad.
place.
I mean, yeah. If you've been to the Dominican Republic,
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever seen this, there's this Chris Rock bit on it, right? I think it's on his comedy special Tambourine.
Yeah.
He's like, if you're ever going to these
Which
resorts,
is such a good comedy special.
Yeah, I'm gonna butcher his joke, but he
Yeah.
says something along the lines of like, if you're ever headed to the resort, and he's like, you know, you see all these beautiful pictures. When you get there, it's all beautiful. But he's like, on the way there, you'll
Well.
just see these kids running on the side,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just staring at your wheels and like spinning and spinning
Yeah.
and spinning. But like,
Oh, they were like, wheel.
oh, that's what it was. I completely butchered it. But yeah, like if you've been to the Dominican, you'll see that the rest of the country is outside of the resorts. It's not exactly. I feel
There's a
like,
lot of poverty there.
yeah,
Yeah.
extremely,
Yeah.
extremely poverty.
Yeah.
Extreme
Like-
poverty.
Yeah.
Like I feel like lightning strikes, and even if it was overcapacity, that doesn't really make sense that the roof would collapse or cave in. It seems like a structural issue, but it's probably a lot of that, right? Like,
Yeah, but then the other side of it would also be that for countries like that depend so much on tourism and stuff,
Yeah.
they're usually very careful on like, you know, certain places they know tourists like to go to.
Yeah.
I think this is like a local thing.
That's what I was gonna say, because from what I remember, they're local. Like I haven't heard of this place.
No,
I think they have some club in a cave there. I think there's like
Yeah,
a couple
yeah.
of these
Coco,
other ones. Some Imagine this or that. I can't remember. But
Been a
like,
while.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard of this one.
Yeah.
But there were still tourists there. There was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Americans.
It's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
It's really sad. So many people died.
That's
No,
crazy.
that's the sad part. We're just like talking about wheels and stuff. But
Like people were like stuck in the rubble. They couldn't get identified. Their family members were looking for them.
Yeah, that's wild.
imagine that. Remember that other girl we were talking about who was also at a
Still,
resort?
like, there's like nothing final about that.
Right? It just went away. I haven't
It
heard
just
about
said
it.
just close the
Presumed?
investigation.
Was she
Yeah.
just presumed
Yeah.
dead
That
or
she
what?
drowned.
That's so messed up for a parent, I feel like, right? Because like you're like a part of you's gonna be like, no, man,
Maybe she's
what
not.
happened to
Yeah.
her?
You
Like
You don't
you're
really
just-
get closure.
Right.
Unless you see.
You're never really like at peace with it. You're just, but like imagine that, or I don't even want to imagine being trapped under rubble, right? Like it's like you heard about all those stories during 9/11, right? Like,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
people- yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so moving on. So LeBron James is first pro male athlete to be honored as a Barbie doll. So it's called Ken Ambassadors.
Okay.
So it's just featuring, he's not going to be the only one. It's featuring like cultural or community icons.
Okay.
But it looks so legit. Like
Oh shit!
Yeah, it's
It
pretty
does
good.
look like him.
Yeah, it looks like him for
Not
sure.
like the Dwayne Wade statue, but yeah,
Yeah,
That Wade statue was crazy.
yeah,
he's a Ken doll.
yeah.
That's a DI Barbie? What's going on? Like,
Huh?
like
What, did you
I don't know.
make a DI joke?
Yeah.
just completely flopped.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. No, they've been having
Barbies have guys?
Ken
yeah,
dolls.
Ken dolls.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like they never
so
used
he's
to
a
have like
He's a Ken doll, yeah.
Ken dolls of color. when I was growing up. Even Barbies of color. Like I don't remember having. Yeah, but I don't think anyone ever gave me one, or I never played with one. But I wish I
didn't
did.
have one, so they didn't exist.
I had lots.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big Barbie fan. Okay, let's move to Minecraft.
He doesn't want to talk about it. Let's move on.
So Minecraft is that popular video game. Honestly, like I've never played it, and I don't really understand it that well.
Yeah.
But there's a new Minecraft movie, and there's this trend that emerged from the film. It's kind of been going viral. It's called the chicken jockey. So it's something that a character in the movie does. It's a baby zombie riding a chicken, and it's called chicken jockey. And so when he says it in the film, people in theaters, this is how they've been reacting, and it's been going viral. So here's a quick clip.
What the hell?
Chicken jockey.
Why? Bro.
You know what? I saw something like they have to clean up Minecraft theaters. I didn't understand why till right now.
This is what it is. And it's happening in so many theaters, and it's making such a mess. The cops are getting involved in some places.
They should. That's horrible, man. The kid that works there for minimum wage,
right?
Cleaning up all that popcorn.
I mean,
but imagine sitting there with your kid and
like I would have no idea. You know what's so funny? Like I was planning to go to that movie, like take my cousin's kids. And I had no idea about this. And imagine like me just sitting there and then that happened.
But they would
like,
love it.
Can we get it back? Let's throw it around.
Yeah. It's fun for a kid.
I feel like TikTok trends, they get a little wild, some of them, right? Like some of them even like those eating ones. Or weird.
People, like died from certain TikTok trends.
Yeah.
Like I always feel for the worker, man. I don't even like. I know people just leave their popcorn when they get up. You see it in every seat. I always throw mine out.
Yeah, like when I was younger, for sure, I always put it underneath the chair.
Yeah.
But now it's different.
I mean, one, you're older. Two, like, being, children of immigrants, right? Everyone's parents and stuff have worked in the service industry, right? And you've been around people who are jerks to people in the service industry. So it's like, waiters, Uber drivers. Like, I'm not saying there's not bad ones out there, right? But like you feel for them. You're like, yeah, man, it's a hard job. People bitch at you all day for no reason, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, even if you're on the night shift at a movie theater right now, you're probably like, I'm not doing the Minecraft thing.
Obnoxious.
Yeah.
If I walk in and I see that, I quit on the spot. I'm not
people are throwing like
insane.
popcorn, confetti,
I'll go
toilet
look at the other theater.
A chicken. One guy had a chicken.
People bring real live chickens to movie theaters.
What the hell?
How do they bring that in?
Then they're just waiting the whole movie till this chicken jockey part to do this.
What? He just says the word and they just...
Yeah.
I kind of do want to watch the movie.
I do too.
I never even knew the movie was even out.
Oh, I
didn't know either.
But I don't know what it's about or what it even is.
I've seen Minecraft the game. I've never played it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everyone on the planet has seen it.
Yeah.
But that's all we have for off topic.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the questions. So first, we'll start with, would you rather have a pause button or a rewind button for your life, and why?
Rewind.
Yeah.
Why stay
you can
still?
keep rewinding.
I guess they're probably saying pause at like a certain wonderful moment.
Yeah, like, okay, pause in the sense that, like, say you want to pause at this age.
Okay.
But then rewind would be like if you want to go back to like a younger age.
Yeah, or back to
Maybe
when you know
depends on
what the
your
numbers are in the lottery, right? And then you play them.
Yeah.
Right? And then
That's
you
a
win
good
the
take.
lottery,
Always
right?
thinking about money.
And then
Invest in Google.
Right? And then you know what to invest in and when to buy houses with these interest rates, housing bubbles, you know everything then.
Yeah, I think we all agree. Rewind.
Right? Rewind. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought this one would be interesting to do. So rank these awkward social situations from 1 to 5 without knowing what's next.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is laughing at something that wasn't a joke.
Oh. I feel like I do that a lot.
Do you?
Maybe.
I usually say
it
jokes that
awkward?
nobody laughs at.
Yeah.
But I'll give a pity laugh if somebody needs it.
Yeah.
How bad is
What do we rank them in terms of?
awkwardness?
Oh, awkwardness.
Yeah.
So
Like
one
how
would be the
awkward
worst,
it'd be.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not as
That's not
awkward.
that bad,
No.
right? Like 4 or 5.
That's
I would say 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
4.
4?
Do 4.
Okay.
5? 4? Okay, 4.
Next, replying "you too" when the cashier says "enjoy your food."
Oh my god, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
But because I do it so often, it's not awkward for me.
Yeah,
I
like
would
who
say
cares,
5.
right?
Yeah, that's 5.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, next. Waving back at someone who wasn't waving at you.
Oh,
That's an awkward one.
That's awkward if they see you.
How do you play that off?
When what's
notice,
really
Like,
right?
oh,
awkward?
behind you.
And there's no one behind you.
I feel
That
like
is
I've had it a
awkward.
couple of times where I'm waving at somebody, right? And I'm not waving at the person who waves back at me. And I'm like,
behind them?
yeah. And then that person just goes,
You just
That's
act like you're
awkward
stretching.
too.
yeah.
And you
it's
didn't even
all
do
awkward.
anything.
So, like, what do you say? 2?
Yeah,
That's
I
a
think
little
that's
more
a 2.
awkward.
That's a
Yeah.
little more.
We'll go 2.
2. The next one is saying goodbye, then walking in the same direction.
No.
That's so awkward.
That one
Yeah.
is
So weird.
But
And then somebody wants to
that one?
engage in
Or
like
is
some
that 3?
stupid
Oh, that's
small talk.
Should that be one?
no, you just have to pretend like you guys have already.
Walking somewhere
Yeah,
else.
that used to happen to me a lot in uni.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
much in uni, man.
Yeah.
Because you walk around a lot.
Yeah.
And you go into the same door.
1 or 3.
Is it that bad? 3? We just leave
It's
one
pretty
open?
awkward. But
Yeah, let's leave it open.
All right.
Okay.
Let's go.
3.
So 3?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last one,
Number 1.
calling someone the wrong name again.
Oh, that's
Again.
Again.
Yeah,
Again,
again.
it's
That's
super
awkward.
awkward.
That's
Yeah.
pretty awkward.
that's a good list.
That
That's a
should
good
be
list.
number 1 awkward,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Okay, so number 1.
You already messed up the name once, you do it again.
Yeah.
Right?
so
What does the person do? At some point, you're doing it on
leave.
purpose.
Just go away.
Yeah, at some point, you're doing it on purpose. Just mispronouncing somebody's name again
No,
and
just
again.
saying the wrong name.
Yeah. Let's be honest. We know people that do that shit on purpose.
Yeah. It's so annoying. Why
Do you guys
do
ever
that?
remember doing that in your life?
No.
I remember a
never.
specific one.
That you.
I didn't remember her name.
Oh.
And I was introducing my friend to them.
you just
And I
guessed.
remember 2 out of the 3 names.
Oh no.
And I was blank.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
It still sticks with me.
So what did you do? You should have been like, these are the girls.
I don't know. At that moment, you regret everything. Why am I introducing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do these people
Why
need to
was
know
I
each other?
born?
Oh wow.
That's certified number 1 awkward.
Yeah.
And remember, we're not experts on anything, and you guys should always do your own research. And we'll catch you guys next week.
Take care, everybody.